share my screen with you first. As you see here, give you a little more size on that screen, and we'll get started with some preamble. I'm going to sprinkle. I'm not going to just talk from slides. I do have plenty to demonstrate and show today on how these principles come to life in a variety of environments and a variety of contexts. Most of us in the ad game understand targeting from a variety of perspectives. Some of those you see on the screen. So think behavioral audience targeting in general terms, and then this third odd bucket called contextual. So knowing something about the person, and then knowing something about what it is that they're reading. And I think the headline for today's webinars really do both because they mutually reinforce each other. And not just our research, but you'll see here at the end, it is in fact important to do both because, again, if you know as much as possible about the audience member or audience group, and you know a lot about what it is that they are reading, have read, and then are reading in a real-time sense, you get a much better ad placement and better ad engagement. So if you're interested, well, I can send you this nice study. It's a few years old now, but I'm sure it still holds water, done by Yahoo when they looked very carefully at this. That was their overall conclusion. You get about a 40% better engagement with your audience when you do both behavioral and contextual targeting. All right, so we like at ADmantX to focus on contextual. It's what we do, and our departure point is really to poke a little bit at how contextual works today. In most environments that you come across, your own or another third-party data provider, or even targeting services that claim to be semantic as an improvement over contextual, I think what you'll find is the treatment of content in what we call a bag of words and some statistics. So bag of word really means to stop and think about how Google or any big indexer treats content across the internet. We call it bag of words because if you opened a page of content, or Google opened a page of content, stripped every word from the page, threw all the words in a bag, shook them up, and then spilled them back on a table, to Google, the page would be exactly the same. All they're doing is counting the words, the frequency of the words, and generating some statistical manipulation over those frequencies, page by page by page. In other words, shaking them up and spilling the words on a table tells you that they're not attempting to really get to the underlying meaning of that page. What is it that the author meant by writing that page? First paragraph followed by a second paragraph, first sentence followed by second sentence, first word followed by the second word. We write in an order with a logic for a purpose. When you treat words as if they're nothing but little objects, and that it's simply a counting game with some statistical manipulation, you really are wasting a lot of information inherent on the page. And so our job is to go to that next level. So here's a couple of other ideas to think about when you think about keywords. And there are really three things wrong with keywords. And when you hear people say, oh, we do contextual targeting, the challenge is to ask them whether they're using a keyword-based system a la Google Index, bag of words plus statistics, or that they are trying to understand the difference between cats and cars. When a system sees the word Jaguar, does it understand and put a definition behind the word? To an advertiser, it makes a difference. Please, I'm in the car business, in the Jaguar car business to be specific. Don't put my ad on a page that talks about the animal. That's a wasted impression. You're wasting my money. So get the system to get down to that level that understands the difference between cat and car. So, sorry, that is what we call the same word, different meaning problem with keywords. The opposite is also true. Different words have the same meaning. That's why we have a book called the Thesaurus, right? A book of synonyms, a rewrite of the dictionary for all words organized, that the words are different, but the meanings are the same. So, and I'm purposely giving a phrasing example here rather than just a direct word. So the concept of disability legislation and equal opportunity law really are the same thing. So can the system, any system, understand that these two are equal? And that's important because most people, if they're using a keyword-based system, will target based on lists. So when you target based on a list, it's incumbent on the user to make sure that the list is thorough and inclusive. Inevitably, it is not. And so from an ad targeting perspective, things are missed. You might write disability legislation in your list and forget about equal opportunity law and vice versa, and so you've missed an opportunity. Slightly more subtle idea is that different words have related meanings. So it's not a synonym now. It's not the correct definition, but words are related to each other in chains. It's how we learn language, whether it's Dutch or whether it's English, how we learn a language when we're children and we hear something new. We understand a word by thinking about it in the context, the other words around it, and how that word is like another word you already know. So here you see a diagram. An organization is a type of company. A company is a type of organization, and charity is a type of organization. And a charity is a non-profit version of a company. So there are fantastic arrays of relationship between words. Synonym was just one of those. Same, different words with same meanings. So those words are related in that way. But think for a minute about geography. Think about the name of the town where you're sitting right now, and the name of the town, the city or the town. Those words have a geographic relationship with whatever the wider region is called, a county, a state, and then above that, a country, and above that, a region, and above that, a hemisphere of the world, and so forth. So words have very interesting chains of meaning, and if you map those out, which is how our brain is taught to learn, then you have a fighting chance to get a machine to do the work for you, to understand and truly contextualize, not in a keyword-based way, but in a semantic way. So without that kind of a system, you end up based on the title of our webinar today, you end up with nasty mistakes in the ad targeting world. Behavioral can be as wonderful, audience targeting and demographic and retargeting and cookies and everything else you can think of. But without a deeper understanding of the content, you get mistakes like you see here. In the yellow, these are true examples, by the way. We collect these in what we call wall of shame. So here is an advertiser, BASF, as a chemical company, has been placed by the BBC on a page that talks about ozone and skin cancer, and the gas is destroying reactions with industrial chemicals, etc. So this is not a good placement. it destroys the brand name of BASF. So undoubtedly after this campaign ran, assuming BASF noticed, the phone was ringing at BBC. How about New York Times, preeminent digital publisher or print publisher of any kind? And they make mistakes as well. So there's a cruise line at the top, and we're talking about a boat disaster right on the front page. There's a picture and a headline, and it's important to note that the article doesn't say cruise line that crashed. It does say it's a ferry. So again, it's a related thing. But if I'm Holland America, I sure don't want to be anywhere near this kind of content. New York Times, why can't your system keep me safe? I'm not going to spend money if you can't get me in the right place. My personal favorite, cell phone blast, kill man, unlikely, it says. But there you see what got triggered by the word blast in the content, picked up and matched in the simplistic keyword-based fashion, picked up and assigned the Samsung Blast phone from T-Mobile to this content. So the add to edit match, very, very bad in this case. You might argue Samsung picked a bad name for their phone too, but that's a different issue. I think this is my last example. Here we go, right with the Jaguar. Again, a true story. I believe this is also from the New York Times. So in this case, these are text ads still being run a little bit on New York Times. And so there you see great neck Jaguars trying to sell the car, and yet it lands on a page with Jaguars mentioned as in terms of the animal. So system could not distinguish car from cat, matched up the ad, wasted money, wasted impression. All right, so what do we do about it? It's our contention that the next generation of contextual targeting really has to rely on semantic processing. Now, there are lots of, as I indicated in the beginning, there are lots of people who will throw that word around, semantics. It's a sexy next generation technology word. The reality is there are a variety of methodologies within that class of information technology. Ours is what we refer to as a fully natural linguistic processing methodology. In other words, there are no statistics. We're not counting, we're not doing models, we're not doing machine learning over content. Those are valid methods, nothing wrong with them. But the reality is most of those methods were developed starting some 30 years ago, because the preferred method, the fully natural language processing method, took more time. It was a little slow compared to a statistical means or a semi-statistical means. And so people developed shortcuts. In effect, they started down that path because we didn't have the computing power for a true NLP processing way. We never gave up on it. We've been in the business in various forms, not always as semantics, but for nearly 20 years. And so we've had a long time and many hundreds of deployments to continue to grind away, not just on the accuracy, but on the speed of a 100% NLP solution. And then the cloud came along, and so you can put it up on the cloud, and voila, any of the speed issues that have come along starting some 20 to 30 years ago have disappeared. So I'd like to demonstrate some of that to you so that you understand how it works. Let me stop as we're switching gears to make sure if there are any questions.
Nope, still all clear for me.
Okay, good. Daniel, you okay?
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Okay, we like to show this this kind of capability because it gets at what goes on behind the scenes, and it's a kind kind of fun to watch. So let's go back to the Jaguar question, or car question. So my car eats gas when I step on the gas. So I hope that's not too small on your screen. I'm writing one sentence, small sentence. My car eats gas when I step on the gas. So if I submit this to the 100% NLP, natural language processing, and in effect, ask the machine, read this as if you were a human being. And so what you see is a markup, or an understanding in many ways in the way in which your brain works. Of course, you don't think about it at all this way, but it just happens naturally. That these three things you see on the screen become mutually reinforcing to arrive at a conclusion over this small piece of content. The first is to look at the categorization. So what's the whole content talking about? So you'd see it's about motor vehicles and engineering and chemistry. And that makes sense. You know, as a human reader, you can conclude that right away. On the bottom right, you'll see how the words relate to one another. This is vitally important. So it's our solution to getting away from that bag of words problem that I described earlier. Someone wrote the content in a particular order for a reason. Let's try to discover what that is. So there's a logic stream. There's a reference within content. Let's utilize that information. So in this case, you'll see what's called a triple. So a subject. This is called a predicate, and an object down here. So the subject of the sentence is my car. What is it about my car? Well, my car eats. All right. What is it that my car eats? It eats gas. So you can boil lots of content down to these three essential elements: a subject, a predicate, and an object. And then finally, you see over here in a light a sort of a dense representation of lots of interesting ways of thinking about content. One of those you see are the markup. Again, apologize if it's awfully small for you to see, but it would be an adjective, a noun, a verb. These are ways in which we were taught, perhaps in kids, called phonics, or something else, maybe in Holland. I don't know how the education system is there, but it's looking at the role the word is playing. And then you'll see red and green markup indicating it's a compound sentence. So put a period here, and the two sentences would stand alone. GN means a group noun. C for conjunction, so you're combining these things. But the fun part is, as I indicated earlier, was getting a definition behind every word. So here I've written, purposely written the word gas in the same sentence, and the system understands the first gas to be gasoline, and the second gas to be a gas pedal. So like Jaguar, please make sure you tell me that it's a car or a cat. Here, the problem is even more difficult because I've got gas in the same sentence. So if I'm in the business of selling car parts, I want to be associated with this gas and not the selling of gasoline. By the way, we could do the Jaguar. So my Jaguar eats meat. Should be straightforward. So here Jaguar is the cat. You see the pop-up tells me it's a cat. And the change of one word back to gas will then tell me that Jaguar is a luxury car. Only because one word changed. So these are interesting kinds of examples that get your brain thinking a little. Here's another tough one, because where we've pushed this technology is in the realm of emotions or sentiment, buyer behavior, buyer intention. Some of those signals come from content, and we want to make sure, again, that we're leveraging and using that. So something like the buttons on my lousy Motorola Moto. Let's try Google, because Google owns them now. Cell phone are actually really great. So here's a hard question, and it's hard because lousy is in the sentence, so it's negative, and great is in the sentence, a positive. What's great and what's lousy? Well, it's easy to see lousy is the Google cell phone. That's very straightforward, an adjective in front of a couple of nouns. But it's this guy over here that's hard. Great. As a human reader, you know immediately it refers to buttons. But it's out of position. It's to the right of the noun. This other stuff is interrupting it, and there's no punctuation, no commas to give any clues. And yet, a system like this can determine that great, at the bottom of the pop-up you see subject, SPJ, the button. So great is referring to the buttons. So the buttons are great. In the end, you wouldn't score this in a neutral fashion, which is what a statistical system would do. A statistical system would say, lousy, count 1 negative. Great, count 1 positive. 1 positive and 1 negative, that's neutral. In reality, this person doesn't think neutral about their cell phone at all. Generally, they think it's lousy. Only one small aspect of the phone, which happens to be the buttons, are positive. Okay, so far so good?
Yep.
Right. So back to the slides now.
Yep.
Again, the way in which this operates is to map out all these various relationships between words. It's called a semantic network. So think of it as an electronic dictionary, except that it's much more than that. So it's not just a list of words and their definitions, but it's the alternative ways in which those words relate to one another. So we described one of those earlier, or two of those earlier. The first is a synonym. So rearrange the relationship between words when it comes to different words, same meaning. Those are synonyms. And you can list that out as what's called a graph database, a network of relationships. Then go and do the geography. And we can actually see that if we go back here. So we can look some of these up. So if we said again, the gasoline, we could stick with just gas. Turns out there's more than gasoline and gas pedal. There's 12 versions of gas in English, it tells me up here. 12 nouns and 4 verbs, it turns out. And down the center here you will see all the definitions of the word gas. Okay. But here's what's fun when we look at it. You see the panes to the right and left are changing. And so this look at the information is hierarchical. So here's gasoline, and it's a type of fuel. So something less specific to something more specific. A fuel, gas is a specific form of fuel, and premium gas is a specific form of gasoline. But here is the air in the room. It's a material that's a type of atmosphere or a specific type of floating gas, not a liquid, and so on. So these relationships exist. Now we could change this and we could say something like, I'm in Connecticut in the United States. And if I change the relationship to be geography, now you'll see New England, Long Island Sound, a town and some towns in Connecticut, the counties, zip codes, so on. A feature would be Long Island Sound. So these are geographic connections between words. Okay, that's a semantic network. We had a small representation here, again on the gas example, fuel or hydrocarbon, and then all this is typically called the subject node, and these are the parents of gas, and these are all the children of gas. So broad, and then more specific. And it's very different look when you go to natural gas as opposed to gasoline. All right. Let's cut to the quick and look at it in practice now, because it gets illuminating quickly. And you'll see, rather than one sentence at a time, if we are to look at a whole page of content, again, here we are in the New York Times, but as quickly as taking this URL, sending it to a service, the ADmantX service, you get a markup or an understanding of the entire page of content. Now, in the end, that basic process of understanding it, not keywords, not in a keyword fashion, but in a true contextual fashion using a semantic natural language processor. You get 4 outputs from that effort. They're here on the screen. The first is marked as the underlined word. So we call those entities. Think of them as people, places, or things. So food and nutrition, and here's a person, David Ludwig. Carbohydrates and blood sugar, so lots. Here's another person down here, Christopher. Here's an institution, Stanford University, and so on. So people, places, and things. These are little bits of targeting data that give signals either to stay away from the page in terms of safety, no mistakes, or little bits of targeting data that you want to have the ad associated with. But there's more. There are standard categories, so not just the little bits, but all, again, across the entire content. What is the content about? About weight loss, diabetes, food, drink, disease, health, and fitness. These are IAB compliant, but driven 5 levels deep. So instead of 26 top-level categories from the IAB, in terms of a thorough understanding for advertising, we've made it much, much more specific, down to 5 levels. 5 levels deep. So 900 categories instead of 26. And then this unique channel of information called emotion. What is it that people feel and think and are motivated to do when they read this content? It's about hunger and desire. There's some other broader things like positive emotion, and so neutral. I think this is neutral emotion. So generally, this is on the positive side of the ledger. And they're interesting, what is it that triggers this idea of desires? Oh, well, there's cravings on the page, right? About hunger. Okay, not much there. Anyway, you get the basic idea. What triggers weight loss? Oh, calories, obesity, or diet, so forth. The last one I'm going to show you up here are called custom. We call those custom categories. The reality is these are handmade matching algorithms. So looking for specific things on the page sometimes can slip out of focus when we're looking only at the little bits of entity targeting data, the broad categories, broad emotions. Some customers, some advertisers say, hold on a minute, I want to achieve something really unique and specific with my banner ad. I'm targeting on, moms who have children who want to go on a vacation on a cruise line with lots of adventure, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have a specific category for that, so can we take some of these and recombine them into something new and put a name on it that means something to us? And that's what you're seeing up here, and I'm going to show you that now. Let me slow down and make sure we're okay on both time and any questions.
Yeah, fine for me still.
Yeah.
Fine for me too.
Okay. Let's go over here. It's a little easier to see first. So in the real-time bidding environment called AppNexus, we have an implementation of these ideas as an application or an app from their marketplace. We encourage you, if either one of you will use this, use AppNexus to do some buying or trading. Certainly you can find the ADmantX Spot On is the name of it, Spot On Contextual app in the AppNexus marketplace. You can install it and play around with it. It'll look exactly like what you see on the screen. And the notion here is, again, that I need to target something unique and specific. And so what I want to do is build my own matching algorithm. And then I want to publish it and I want to use it in this real-time bidding environment. So to our idea of traveling with kids, so what I can do is start at a broad idea of travel, and that may be too broad for me, so I'm going to expand it, or I go down from travel, down a level. So what's the next specific one? Traveling with kids. And so what I can do is say I must have. So this is an operator saying, yeah, this is a strict criteria. And then transports. Within transport, I see, sea travel. So I am going on vacation with kids on a cruise ship. And then I want to make sure that there's plenty for them to do. And so I go into sports, I go down a little bit, and I want to make sure that there's scuba diving available. We could make a little less restrictive condition, so it would be nice if the cruise ship or the content we're targeting towards talked about a cruise line or cruise ship, and it may or may not have scuba diving. It would be nice if they did. And just for kicks, they say, well, yeah, my kids really love to play billiards or pool. And then you can switch and you can say, for ad safety, which is really the target, the name of our webinar today, is I'm picking things I want to target towards, the things I want my ad to be bought and placed, the content I want my ad to be bought and placed onto. So target towards, but I also need to wrap in the things I don't want or the things to avoid. So here I can say negative emotions not to have. Here's negative sentiment. It's a slightly different idea. Not to have. So what have we got now? So I'm not going to go towards negative emotions or negative sentiments, but I am going to go towards content that's traveling and traveling with kids in a cruise line, playing pool, and going scuba diving. Cool, that'll do it. Great vacation with kids. I put a name on this. I can save it. Tells me it's there. I see it here. The bottom of the list of all my custom segments. And I want to publish that. And I publish it because what happens is I want to be able to use, it tells me it's here. I want to be able to use that in my targeting environment. And I cannot show you this here because this is just a sandbox. But if you're familiar at all with AppNexus, you would then go to your console, and what you would see is a list of segments. That's the name AppNexus uses. What are the things you want to target towards or against? And those would be a name of things. And one of those names in the list would be Great Vacation with Kids, parentheses, ADmantX. So you could click on that, and all the things that we just put together would be the criteria in which AppNexus would then find inventory to place your ad campaign on or protect against. You could combine that with all kinds of other interesting third-party data providers. So audience segments of a variety, you know, between age 30 and 50, et cetera, et cetera. So you could pick all those, combine them on the fly, just like where we started the webinar today. I need to target both behaviorally or from an audience perspective, and I need to target on the content for safety and for optimization. Put both of those in an environment like a real-time bidder, like AppNexus, and you really make campaigns work very, very hard for you. Here's a slightly different version of the same kind of interface, but gives a little more control. You know, so we can do interesting things like love and joy, so the emotional side. So travel, kids, no, children, cruise, no, can't remember the word, you have to think about it. Then something like not negative sentiment, not negative emotions. So I've sort of, this is the not operator here. So here's what's to go towards. Here are the things to go against. This gives you a little finer tooth control. I can test this idea against content. I get an immediate report. This would cover about 4% of all content. I would get of all the content available to me, this construction would pick about 4%. I could ask for suggestions, which is an interesting idea. So among all these ideas and concepts, and remember, these are not keywords, okay? These are much broader than that. So it's not just the word children. It would be kids and siblings and brother and sister and all the other ideas that mean the same thing as children. Same with travel, same with joy and love and so forth. All those are included as soon as you target this way. So again, you don't have to remember to construct a thorough list, the downfall of keywords. The system does it for you. But within all these concepts, it's sometimes interesting to see what other ideas, concepts, topics, and entities and feelings are being represented in content. So there's an association. We wanted these things. And then we look and then we say, oh, you know, there's some other things going on here. Not quite sure how to make sense of it right now, but for this content we have, but you could do it maybe a little broader like this. I love to travel, so when people talk about loving to travel, what else is associated with it? Oh, weddings. Of course, I forgot about that.
You know, you have the AppNexus console open up in one of the tabs in the browser. Was that what we were looking at before?
Yes, this is our direct interface, and this one back over here is the AppNexus application. They're basically the same, it's just a different user experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And this one, because it's within AppNexus, it immediately ties into any bidding that you're doing on the platform.
That's right.
So when it's within your own environment, does it tap into, how do you make it usable through your environment?
Right, good. So this becomes just like before, you save it, you put a title on it, it goes against a specific key, you put a description, and then this name up here, whatever we name it, it becomes a JavaScript call on a page. So you place the JavaScript tag called, call it good travel, and this becomes a JavaScript variable on a page. Every time somebody opens that page, it comes and checks for these conditions. If those conditions are met, the answer behind the scenes is yes, no. So, in other words, page is okay for ad, page is not okay for ad, based on those conditions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Before we run out of time, let me speed it up here. Well, you've gotten the basic idea how this comes together. I've shown you a couple of different implementations hardwired into an RTP environment like AppNexus, and this is done in many other RTB or networking environments, so it's ready to be used. Or the alternative interface I showed you, in which case then the wiring is done a little bit more by hand down at a tag level per page. The outcome of these kinds of things is pretty illuminating. You know, you can measure those click-through rates in different categories, but at the end of the day, what's really important to note is efficiency. First and foremost, safety in a campaign. So no mistakes, no angry phone calls from an advertiser. Why are you putting my ad next to that content? You're making me look bad. And that's the opposite of what I wanted to achieve with my ad. You know, you owe me money, reduce the price, I cancel the campaign, whatever the answer is. So safety is job one. And then the message back to the advertiser is, you know, as smart as anybody who could ever make the most thorough list of keywords to target from a contextual point of view, you're going to miss something. And so campaign is a little slower, might take longer to find all the right pages. Now instead what you've done is got a smart semantic-based system. Campaign runs faster, assuming there are no, governors on the campaign, faster rather than slower. And what that does is free up impressions or inventory down the line. Sell more campaigns, make more money. It also has the added effect, again, of targeting stronger towards and making sure targeting against for safety, to making those ads work harder. And in conjunction with the behavioral, you get this kind of ad engagement. It means higher prices.
Hi there, Brooke. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I have to jump off, but I wanted to just say thank you. I appreciate you walking this through, and it's clearly very interesting what you guys are up to. And I'll connect on LinkedIn if it makes sense at some point in the future to talk further. I'll definitely reach out.
Appreciate that. That'd be great.
All right, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, Daniel's signing off. So yeah, and we're done anyway. So any other questions or comments you have, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a few specific questions. We are using AppNexus as well for all of our RTB and for all of our advertisers as well. So that's would be an easy implementation. I'm just curious, like, how does it work with, for instance, when you target a campaign on a certain seller? Does the ADmantX system process all the pages within that seller and then like real time uses that, or is it just a specific set of pages that it had already seen and processed?
Well, AppNexus does not give us control over which inventory by publication, if that's what you mean. Like if you said to me, I only want to target New York Times, and then I want to do everything else you're showing me, they don't let you do that. What we can do is know enough about the subject matter of the New York Times, which we can measure offline, and then utilize that information as a targeting criteria within AppNexus. Now, it's not a perfect solution, and in fact, you would get inventory outside of New York Times, staying with that example, in addition to a great deal of New York Times in terms of match. But you know,
I basically know the segment is the most specific targeting method you have. You can really use the segment and then also say like, I only want these and these sellers or publishers.
Well, if there is the capability way of doing it. It doesn't go through us. I'm saying it doesn't. That isn't the case. What I do know is AppNexus doesn't let us do it. There may be other kinds of data providers, and I would suggest you look through the app marketplace. Maybe there is such a thing, and you can make those selections, with those data providers, or in your console. We, as a third-party data person, we have somewhat limited visibility inside the AppNexus arena. In other words, we can't act like you and look at how everything works. So I would check some of that out. Again, either directly through AppNexus or ask that question to them, or through a third-party data application. And there are lots of them.
And just for curiosity, how is it with Dutch, like the language? Say, for instance, we have a campaign that we only want to target Dutch people.
Yeah, we get this question all the time. In fact, we're rapidly expanding all of our language availability, and I believe it's literally in the last 2 weeks that we mounted up Dutch.
Okay.
I know we did that for sure, because I don't cover Europe, so but I'll have the right people be in touch with you if you want to get the answers to that and explore further.
Sure. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in maybe trying it out for a spin, but then I need some more specific information on that. So if you could have one of your European or Dutch people contact me, that would be great.
Yeah, he's a UK guy. He's in London, so we'll have him contact you. Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect, Tim.
All right. Yeah. So thanks for the webinar and the introduction, and maybe we'll speak again.
Very good. Appreciate it, Tim. Have a good day.
All right.
You
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.